I have up here is I have 2 tablespoons of butter already portioned. Okay, I have 2 tablespoons of flour. I have a custard cup that has all of my spices in here. Now, the salt that is listed in the recipe is meant to go in the sauce. Salting your pasta water has no measurement. That's different. You decide how much salt you want to put in the pasta water, or maybe you don't want to salt it at all. But this salt is meant to go in the sauce, so make sure you measure that amount for in the sauce. All right? Your salt, pepper, and paprika can all go in the same prep dish because it all goes in at the same time with the spices. All right? We've got our flour, and then I have 2 types of cheeses here. I know they look very similar, but I've got 2 cups of what it says is Monterey Jack cheese. Monterey Jack cheese is a white cheese. However, it's very expensive and hard to get in the amount of quantity. So we use the Mexican blend cheese that has some of that in there. And then this is like a cheddar jack or Colby Jack blend that you can do. So it's 2 cups of the Mexican blend, 1 cup of the Colby Jack or cheddar jack blend. All right. But it's all going to get used at about the same time. You'll use your liquid measuring cup for milk. You'll have 2 cups of milk. And then you're going to have you're going to need your whisk, which is in your bin today. That's already in your toolbox. But in your kitchen, you'll see that I have a saute type pan, and then I have a pasta pot. Those things are not normally here, though that's special equipment, right? So special equipment is your pasta pot, your saute pan, and you'll also need plates for serving. You might want to write that in your special equipment box. So this is mise en place. Everything in its place. Everything is ready to go. Now I can start my sauce while that water is on and waiting to boil. When I'm trying to boil my water, I'm going all the way up on the highest heat so that it comes to boil. Electric stoves, they take a little bit longer sometimes than the gas stoves, so keep that in mind. Get it started right away. All right. So for my saucepan, it tells me that I'm going to heat my saucepan to a medium heat. I'm actually going to turn my burner onto like an 8. It goes like 1 through 9/10 is high. I'm going to start at an 8 and then I'll adjust it down because again, the electric burner takes a little bit of time to get warm. It tells me that I'm going to put my butter in first. So my butter I'm going to melt. This is going to be making a roux. A roux is a culinary skill, okay? The roux is what's going to start our thickening of our sauce. So we're going to melt the butter, and then we're going to add our flour to it and cook that, okay? So the butter is also going to tell us if the pan's getting hot. So that's helpful too, while you're waiting for it to heat, to throw the butter in. And for this roux, we're going to cook it to like a light color. We're going to get that flour to bubble. We're going to get it to be combined. But remember in the video we watched on Friday, there was like the brown roux and then the really dark roux. We're not going that far. We're just going to cook it to like a light colored blonde roux. You don't want your heat so high that this butter is popping and spitting at you because it's also going to start to evaporate and you're going to lose some of that butter liquid that you need to make this roux. So we're going to get that to melt down. All right, I can also sprinkle my flour in there. It's normal for it to be pasty. That's actually how a roux looks. You'll start to smell it. That means it's cooking. We're cooking that flour. So now you can see my flour is integrated into the butter. It looks pasty. Okay. If I stop for a second, I can see just a little bit of like bubbling happening. We're getting some golden color. All right, my pasta pot is boiling. I'm going to put in my noodles. I'm going to cook my pasta to al dente. You guys can see this, but I'm starting to get some foam in my buttery roux. I think I'm ready to start adding my milk. There we go. Our pasta's talking to us. Okay, I'm going to turn my heat down just a little bit. And when I pour the milk in, I want to do it slowly. I'm going to pour some in and start whisking. And it's going to look like, oh my goodness, Miss V, this looks chunky and weird. That's normal. Okay. It's going to smooth out. It's going to thicken up. You want to make sure that you're getting, all right. And we don't want to burn this milk, right? Because it'll taste like it's burnt. We also don't want to curdle the milk. So we want to keep this milk moving. Using that whisk to incorporate the roux. But here's the thing when you make a cheese sauce. You almost have to get your white bechamel, your white sauce, a little thinner than you would like, because when you put the cheese in, melted cheese will also thicken it. So you have to do a little bit of visual testing. And we'll tell you how to do that. All right, the last of my milk is going in. I did that in like 4 different pours to make sure that I'm kind of slowly bringing it up to temperature. I'm adjusting my heat somewhere between like a 6 and a 7. Every oven or stovetop is different. So you want to do, again, you're watching your pot and the pot is talking to you. Someone in your group should be stirring that pasta here and there because it will stick to itself if you don't. Okay. So some culinary techniques here you have is boiling, you have al dente, and you have roux. Those are all culinary techniques that we've got going on in this recipe. Okay, in Culinary 1, when we made chocolate pudding, you were supposed to test it for a stripe on the back of a spoon. We're going to use that same concept here. All right, we're cooking this in. We're going to see it kind of start to thicken, and it's going to take a little time. We have to be patient. All right, so let's kind of test our roux and see what it's doing. So I have a cooking spoon, and I can see it's starting to hold a stripe, right? It's nice, thin sauce. It's going to turn into more of a medium sauce, okay? But I can get that stripe to hold on the spoon, okay? So that being said, I think it's time for me to move to the next step in my recipe. It tells me to put my spices in. So let's throw those in. That's just that salt, pepper, and paprika. Okay, and then it tells me, so I've got my cheese from my big bowl of cheese. I'm going to start by putting in some cheese, whisking, and then I'll add some more. Just going to keep doing this. And it's going to integrate in. Now you have some choices when it comes to the other cup of cheese. Okay, the recipe tells you that for the Colby Jack cheese or cheddar Jack cheese, that other cup, that you can put half of it in and then you can sprinkle half of it on top of your pasta. If you look at the picture in the recipe, it kind of shows it with cheese sprinkled on top. You can really only do that if you reserve some of your cheese. Personally, I'm going to put it all in. But that's a personal choice. You guys decide as a team what you're going to do. But your other little bowl of cheese, like I said, in the recipe, you can start out putting half of it in and see what you think of how thick the sauce gets. And then because I'm going to give your table like a sample, or give each person a sample, I'm not going to spread this. Instead, I'm going to put it in my sauce. It's up to you. You and your partner should talk about like that when you're cooking, what you want to do. Do you want to put it all in or do you want to sprinkle some on top? Now you could flavor this. It's a basic cheese sauce recipe with more flavors. Like you could put in taco seasoning and make it like a taco cheese mac and cheese. You could put in some cayenne pepper or some red pepper flakes and make it kind of a spicy mac and cheese. There's a lot. Like this is still by and large a pretty basic sauce in terms of spices and flavor. Okay. Now let me point something out to you. I set my timer for my noodles for 10 minutes. There's still 2 minutes on the clock. My roux and my sauce is pretty much done. So I would say when you're trying to think about the time and that you have 40 minutes to do this, the sauce probably start to finish takes around 15 minutes. I'm going to turn off the heat. And now let's check the thickness of my sauce. All right, so you can kind of see that now we've got a much different thickness, a much different pour. It's definitely coating the spoon. Okay, and that's that cheese. And as it sits, it'll actually get thicker. So I'm going to show you a trick that what if your timing is a little off? What if your pasta's still going, you're part of the first group, it's like this now, I've still got 1 minute on the clock, I've got to drain it and all that. And what if while my pasta or while my sauce is sitting, it gets thicker and thicker as it sits there? Well, that's when what we can do is use a little bit of pasta water if we need to loosen the sauce up. But when you make pasta, it releases starch into the water. Have you ever noticed when you drain pasta, there's our timer, the water isn't clear, it's like cloudy? That's because starches cook off of the pasta and are in the pasta water. And that makes a really nice liquid that you can use to loosen up a sauce if you need to. So again, as this sits here, if it were to get too thick, what you could do is you could take like one of your measuring cups and you could reserve some pasta water and have that there just in case you need it. From the bottom handles. Okay, bring it to your sink, then pull the strainer up. And you want to shake as much of the excess water out as possible. Personally, I like to just go straight into the pan instead of another bowl. I just do one of those. Okay, got a couple of little stubborn ones that, there we go, we'll just coax those out. All right. Let's mix this up and see how it turned out. All right, so you can see that this is coating this beautifully. My sauce did not get super thick, but remember, if my sauce was really thick and it was bothering me and I needed to loosen it up, I could use a little splash of that pasta water, stir, splash pasta water, stir. All right, but you should have a really nice stovetop mac and cheese texture. You guys ready for a sample?